Jim. So I guess I would start with this. What happens next? The lawsuit's been filed. Where do we go from here? And Happy New Year, and thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I mean, the first thing that we're going to hear next is at some point, I assume we'll hear Matt and Bob Seidler's side of things. There are a lot of allegations in here from Peter's widow. Some of them are quite ugly about the two of them, about other family members. And I would imagine at some point a lawyer of theirs is going to file something that is going to give us their side of things. I would underscore that this is not, shockingly, it's not that uncommon to see, particularly for these billion-dollar sports assets, to see family members following the death of a control owner at odds and disagreeing about what that person wanted and how a team like the Padres can continue and under whose direction.
How much of a case does Sheel have here with her lawsuit, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, she's making a lot of interesting claims about not just particularly her situation. So she claims that she is the sole beneficiary of the trust that has the control stake of the Padres. Both two of her brothers, first I believe it was Bob and now Matt, were executive trustees of that. And she is claiming essentially that they are not following in the wishes of what Peter Seidler wanted. But a lot of this, I think, is going to come down to kind of the estate planning law and what exactly the trust says, what exactly the trust gives power to the trustees as opposed to the beneficiary. And I think a lot of it also, and I'm sure you guys saw in there's a handwritten note from Peter talking about who was going to control this team after. I think some of it is going to partially hinge on what she can prove were Peter's wishes before he died.
Yeah, my next question was going to be about that handwritten note. I mean, there's a lot of handwritten notes are we don't know when they're written, don't know who wrote them, but still at the same time, when you have this, if it truly is Peter's handwriting, how much is that going to, I guess, play into this, or how much can that affect things? Or is that just as I said, it's just a handwritten note. You can't really do much with that.
I think the more that she can prove that Peter's wishes were that she be the person that owned this team, be the person that made decisions about this team, be the person that managed this team, and that eventually it would go on to their children. The more that they can prove that, I think the stronger their case is. And again, I say that without knowing what Bob and Matt Seidler and if other brothers or family members get involved, what they're going to claim in the reverse. But I think a lot of this is going to claim on how direct she can tie the line between what Peter wanted before he died and what is happening right now.
Eben, Novy-Williams, Sportico with us right now on Jon and Jim. In your opinion, what type of impact could this have on an organization as it deals with this?
It's tough. And if I think back right now, some of the biggest major sports teams that have had kind of ownership infighting like this after someone died, a lot of those teams end up getting sold. The Baltimore Orioles, I think, are a really good example. The Angelos brothers, this deal was struck before Peter died, but there was a lot of struggle within the Angelos family about what the ownership structure was going to look like when Peter Angelos was gone. That team obviously ended up selling to a group led by David Rubenstein. Another big one from the past few years, the Denver Broncos. When Pat Bowlen died almost a decade ago now, his kids could not figure out who was going to run the team, how they were going to consolidate ownership in a way that would make the NFL okay with keeping it in the family. And as a result, that team sold to Rob Walton for $4+ billion. So oftentimes when we see fights like this among family members, the end result is the team gets sold. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen here. Every situation is different, but very often when you see arguments like this among family members, the end result is that everybody goes their separate ways, and they go their separate ways with a pretty big financial check.
So Sportico reported today that the team is valued at over $2 billion. What do you think this franchise could sell for if this, happened, like you said, if it goes down that path? What do you think this franchise could sell for?
I would use that number as a pretty good barometer right now. Those numbers are done. My colleague Kurt does those, and he does them with pretty thorough understanding of each team's financial situation. The Orioles, again, sold for a pretty high number, which is the most recent MLB control sale. So use that as a basic barometer for what we think other teams in kind of the middle of the pack in terms of valuation in Major League Baseball might. And $2 billion, the Seidlers bought this team in 2012, their control stake, and they paid $800 million for it. So it's already more than doubled in value in the time that they've had it. Very frequently for ownership groups, the sports team is not only the most valuable asset they have, it's the fastest appreciating asset they have. It's the coolest asset that they have. It's the one they all want to be a part of. And again, that makes it harder and harder when it comes time to decide without the control, the scion, the longtime control owner in the picture, who it is who's going to make those decisions.
Eben, Novy-Williams, Sportico with us right now. Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Knowing what we know now that this lawsuit's been filed, the Padres, I don't know if you've paid close attention, but they haven't spent a penny all offseason. And their payroll from 2023, when Peter was representing ownership, to today has gone down precipitously. How much of their lack of spending, in your estimation, has to do with what's going on behind the scenes?
I don't know the answer to that for sure, but I can guess that this is probably some of the details that she's laying out here have probably something to do with changes in direction. According to Sheel Seidler, she has said that for much of the later end of Peter's ownership of the Padres, she was very involved. She was consulting him on managerial hires. She was consulting on free agents. She says that she was interfacing with team agents. She was attending MLB owners meetings. Now she says the Seidler brothers have essentially told her she's not welcome and have told employees that they're not to trust her or take advice from her or consult with her. So yes, if what she's saying is right, there has probably been a significant shift in the way the team is operated, just because not just Peter gone, but Peter and Sheel are gone. So I don't know for sure, obviously, what free agency would have looked like or what some decisions that the Padres might have made differently. But according to her allegations here, there has been a more significant break in the philosophy of team ownership and management, more so than just Peter passing away, but also her leaving as part of the decision tree as well.
Reading through the lawsuit, what stuck out to you the most about the lawsuit here from Sheel?
I mean, part of it, the things that I think maybe interest me is maybe more of the mundane stuff. She's making some allegations about financial fraud and fiduciary duties that don't really have to do with the Padres, but some dealings that the Seidler brothers were doing with other assets of the Seidler Trust. There's some details in there. I just mentioned one of them about her not being able to use the owner's box anymore. There's definitely some petty stuff in there that I think obviously hints at there being some bad blood probably in both directions here. So yeah, I think those are two that jumped out to me. It seems pretty clear to me, and kind of reading between the lines, and also in some of the things that Sheel said, she's fighting for her family here. And when I say family, I think she's talking about her children. I think what she thinks is if she can get control of this team, that means her kids are going to be the ones that take over after her. And she clearly feels like that is not just what Peter wanted, but also is the right thing for the succession there. So yeah, I think in some ways she's definitely fighting for her own role here. But in the back of her mind, I'm sure she is thinking very intently that if she takes over, if she is the control person, it makes it very easy to make her children the control people, or one of her kids the control person, when she's ready to hand that over as well.
Really fascinating. Eben, Novy-Williams with us from Sportico. He broke this story on the lawsuit today at Sportico with us on Jon and Jim. How long can this take to get resolved? Is this months, years? What's typical here?
Yeah, I mean, this is the American judicial system, so nothing would surprise me. The Pat Bowlen with the Denver Broncos, which I mentioned earlier, that took 7 or 8 years off the top of my head. It was a long process between when Pat died and when that team was sold. All of the kind of back and forth between the Bowlen children and the trustees. It was years and years and years. So maybe the answer is this could be months if things are really shocking or go really easily. But if there's a legal fight here, if the other Seidler brothers decide they have something else to say and really want the courts to decide this, yeah, you could be looking at years as an understatement, probably 5 years maybe, in terms of when a final adjudication of this happens.
5 years.
That's
no,
fine.
That's fine.
That's fine.
Yeah, nice and easy. Yeah.
I mean, this really was, Eben, and we appreciate you for joining. I mean, this was shocking to us today because, the Seidler name in San Diego is one of such prominence, and Peter is regarded as good of an owner as maybe there's ever been in the history of professional sports in San Diego. Now, we all know he's gone, but for there to be this lawsuit and this infighting, I don't think it was necessarily expected from the outside. And now that this is playing out in the public eye, it's going to get potentially messy. Certainly for Padres fans who have been really good. I mean, Padres have drawn incredible numbers, and for this to be on the other side of Peter Seidler's passing is just, I think, unfortunate for a lot of people.
Totally, and a team that has spent not above its means, but spent more than a lot of other teams in its situation have been willing to spend in the past to get to the level of some of the highest spending teams in the league. And baseball, as you guys well know, it's a sport where if you're not willing to spend that, you're probably not going to win.
Right.
This is not the NFL where everybody pays the same amount of money and there's tremendous parity and you could be good one year and bad the next. If your Major League Baseball team is not willing to spend a lot of money to get players, your Major League Baseball team is probably not going to win. So definitely more so in baseball than almost any other sport, at least here in the U.S. But yeah, the direct tie between financial willingness to spend and also success is quite direct.
No doubt. Eben, appreciate it. Happy New Year. And thank you for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Same to you.
All right, great stuff. Eben Novy-Williams. That was fascinating. He said more often than not, it ends in a sale. And he said that the way it plays out in courts can take close to a decade.
That's what stuck out to me the most. When he mentioned, usually when there's infighting with a family over the control of a team, more likely than not, it ends with a sale. And it might not be one of those things that happens quickly either. Like, this could take a while. And he mentioned the Bolins, right? Like, 5 years is a long time.
Yeah.
5 years of this, of back and forth and what's going on. Like, it feels like the news that dropped today. And again, like I said at the start of the show, like my mind just automatically goes to worst case scenario. I hope it's not that, but if it is, we could be looking at like the end of the Seidler name owning this franchise. Eventually this thing could get sold.